You put it in the wrong section.
David, we're now recording and everyone in the lobby has been admitted into the meeting.
Okay, thank you. And can everyone who's online please turn their microphones off so we don't get any background noise, please? There's still, I think, a couple of people with their... Leanna, can you turn Rodney's microphone off, please? I think he's the one where we're getting the background noise.
Not a problem.
I didn't realise we had time.
1 second.
No problems.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel for Wednesday, the 1st of May. My name's David Crofts and I'm the chair of the panel. I'd also like to introduce Gladys James, who's the independent expert for today, and also Phil Young, who's the community member. Once again, welcome. I'll just go through a quick introduction to the functions of the panel before I go through a number of other procedural matters to commence the meeting formally. And this introduction is for the benefit of those who haven't participated in a panel meeting in the past and just need a little bit of background. Essentially, in 2018, the state government made it mandatory for all Sydney councils to establish a local planning panel. The panels aim to provide an increased level of accountability and ensure independent oversight of certain development applications that meet certain criteria. And the functions of the panels are to provide an independent and open forum for interested people and groups to hear and make submissions about development proposals. We consider and determine development applications, application modifications, reviews of applications that are referred to us, and also we make recommendations to councils on planning proposals and any other development matter that may be referred to the panel. There are statutory rules that govern our operation, and there's also a code of conduct and operational procedures. Information about them is available off council's website. The process that's used is that council officers assess development applications as they would for a standard application, and then they make a report to the local planning panel. Then an independent determination of the application is made by the panel itself. One of the things that's important to note is the panel does not set policy or make rules or regulations. It's our job to make a determination based on the legal framework and policies set by the courts, by council and by the state government. So eventually we consider those things rather than set those rules. Normally, panel meetings consist of 4 members, a chairperson, a committee member and 2 independent expert members. Unfortunately, due to a family circumstances, one of the independent experts isn't available for this meeting, so we're down to our quorum of 3 members for this meeting. The independent panel members, including the chair, come off a pool that's established by the state government through a process they operate every 3 years, where they run through a vetting and process to decide people who are suitable to perform this role. The chairs are appointed by the minister, and then the independent experts join a pool of independent experts who are selected from whom the council select members. The expert panel members are required to have expertise in urban design, planning or some other related field, including planning law, and the committee member are a broad representative of the local community, but they're not necessarily an expert in any particular field, although they might be, but they're there to represent the community and not a particular, I might mention also a particular community group. The meeting format we follow is that we receive the report from the council officers. We also receive copies of the submissions made by members of the community. We also have access to a range of supported information that has been lodged or produced. We then have a job of going through that information. We conduct an on-site inspection, either in person or virtually, depending on the circumstances. We then conduct a public panel meeting, which we're doing at the moment for interested people and groups to hear and make submissions. We then go into a closed session for the panel to deliberate and make determinations for each of those applications. And then a public announcement's made by council several days later, once they've gone through all the administrative paperwork and so on. The other thing I'd like to mention is that the public meeting component is an opportunity for objectors and the applicant to make verbal submissions to the panel, but they're not a place where people can have a debate. They're not a place for objectors and the applicant to debate the issues. However, it is a place where the panel members can ask questions and seek points of clarification from either the applicant or those making submissions. That's pretty well a quick background of what the panel does. So I'd now like to move into the procedural matters to commence the meeting. And firstly, as a sign of respect, the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we gather and pays respect to elders past, present and emerging. We have one apology for this meeting that I'm aware of, which is Jason Perica, who submitted a formal apology. He would otherwise be one of the independent experts present at the meeting. Liana, you're not aware of any other apologies, are you?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Great, thank you very much. And also I have received copies of declarations of interest from the panel members present, stating they don't have a conflict of interest in any of the matters being dealt with, but just for thoroughness, I'll just ask them individually now. Bill, do you have any conflicts of interest in relation to this meeting? No. Glenys?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, and neither do I. Moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting. The previous minutes are available on Council's website, and that meeting was held on the 17th of April 2024. The panel notes that the minutes were adopted by the chairperson, who just happens to be me, and have been posted on Council's website. That now brings us to the first matter on the agenda today, which is item 4.1, DA 2024/011, lot 27 DP 7912, 13 Coles Road, Freshwater. It's alterations and additions to a dwelling house, including a carport. We have no objectors registered to speak, but we do have the applicant registered, which is Nicholas Herbertson. I'll just check. I can see there's online. There's a Beck Herbertson shown.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's Nick dialing in Beck's computer. So
oh,
I'm
okay.
here. Hello.
Okay. I'll just check with Liana. There's no one registered that hasn't come up in the speakers list. Is that correct, Liana?
No, just
Okay.
yeah, just
That's fine. So Nick, is it you say? Did you say, Brother Nicholas?
It is, yeah. Thanks, David.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Nick's fine. Thank you.
Nick, you have an opportunity to make a presentation if you wish, or alternatively, you can just respond to any questions that the panel members may have. We're in your hands as to which way you'd like to go.
Perfect. Thank you, David. I've actually just got a couple of photos I'd like to share on the screen and talk through a couple of points quite quickly, if that's okay.
Terrific. That's fine. Now, I might just mention, in terms of providing that presentation, if you can try and limit it to about 3 minutes, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, we're in your hands. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. I'm just bringing up this screen. If you can let me know if you can see that picture when you can.
Not yet.
So while that's
No.
not yet.
No.
Okay, while that's coming up, I'll just
My screen's blank.
Same here.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yes, we have a picture now. Thank you.
okay. Maybe it's the internet here. Thank you for your patience. So firstly, thanks to Northern Beaches Council, particularly the planning department, Adam Croft, Peter, Rodney, and the team. Appreciate the work and collaboration so far, and thanks for the panel today for listening to a couple of components of this development application. We really broadly agree with most of what's in that application. We've worked with council to collaborate and kind of refine the plans over a long period of time to get them where they are today, and I only had a couple of points to raise in terms of for the panel's consideration. The first one is with respect to the rear proposed stairs, and I just wanted to, I know you've got the written submission and you have the other information, so I won't double up on that. The points I kind of wanted to raise were that the proposed movement of the stairs to the west or further into the garden has no real bearing, in our opinion, on the neighbours. They've got a full privacy screen, floor to ceiling height. We've got planting on our sides, on their sides, and we're going to have the screen on the stairs 1.8 metres high. So in our opinion, moving the stairs 500 mil into the garden has no actual material impact to the neighbours or the surrounds, but it does actually impact our children and the ability to play in the garden and use the garden space. That's the reason why we're putting that forward as our proposal to actually have those move is really buys a garden space so kids can use toys and run around. If there's no questions from the panel on that, I'll move to the second point.
Yes, please.
So the second point's in relation to at the front. Let me know if you can see that page to click over.
Yes, but your voice is breaking up occasionally. I'm not quite sure whether you're using Bluetooth headphones, but perhaps, or something that may be leading to that.
No, I'll sit a little closer to the laptop. Is that better?
I think so. We'll see how you go. Thank you.
Okay. So the second component is in relation to the driveway in the garage. So in relation to the driveway and the garage, unlike the rest of the proposal, we've been given an opportunity through the line. These were unfortunately, from our perspective, left off that letter. And when we checked in with council verbally and through the process, they also said there were no issues with the driveway and the garage. So I guess from our perspective, we don't feel like we've been afforded the opportunity to discuss alternatives and feasible solutions. Instead, the council have conditioned the plans, which are basically conditioning them to remove a wall of our existing garage. And we don't believe that is the only solution, and it's definitely not our desired solution. And for example, if additional parking is what council require, there's actually space in front of the house to fit a parking spot, and we would have worked with them to find an alternate solution if that was the driving force for that condition. There's an additional complexity with this particular item, and that is in relation to that notice of discontinuance, which actually requires, signed by council and ourselves, requires that that CDC modification be changed. And reverting back to that CDC modification, we believe actually is not what the parties have signed up to, and therefore, not only is it not practical, it's not desirable, we don't actually think it's legally appropriate to actually revert back to a CDC which has got something signed to say it must be changed. I guess following from those points, we don't believe it's the council's role to determine how we satisfy the orders in terms of the solution. We think they have to agree on the what, but the how should really be something that we propose and they either agree to or not until we can find a solution where it's acceptable, to both parties. And in the proposed plans that you have, our proposed solution and does satisfy those orders, so it meets the obligations that have been set out.
Nick,
In
you're,
relation to the
you're beginning
carport,
to run over
uh,
time, so or in fact, you have run over time. So if you can
Okay.
keep it short, please.
Okay. Sure. In relation to the carport, there are, if not thousands of carports in the local area that are right on the boundary, actually feels a way that sits in the space. So we actually think that would actually enhance what is now just a concrete slab, but it will actually make it a nicer appearance at the front. And we'd like you to consider that as well. So given I'm over time, I will leave it there. Thank you very much for your listening and your consideration.
Thank you very much, Nick. Panel members, any questions? Can you, I was about to say, can you stop screening, but you've done it. Okay, thanks. Panel members, any questions?
No.
No, thank you, Chair.
No, I don't either. So given that we've got no other speakers, we might finish with that item. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us, Nick, and we'll move on to item 4.2. Item 4.2 is, just bear with me a second, is DA 2023/1741. I won't go through all the lot numbers, but it essentially relates to alterations and additions to the Manly Yacht Club Wharf. I have no objectors or applicants who are listed to make a presentation to the meeting. Do you have any, Liana, that I haven't got on the list?
No, no one else has been registered.
Okay, if that's the case, we'll move on to the next item, please. The next item is DA 2024/0113, which is lot 24 DP 13457, 106 Prince Alfred Parade, Newport. Demolition works and construction of an inclinator. I have no objectors listed, but I have Rodney Worthington from YSCO Geomatics, and I notice Rodney's online. Rodney, have an opportunity to make a presentation or just have questions and answers from members of the panel? It's your choice. What would you prefer to do?
Oh, hi there. Yes, I'd like to just make a statement if I could.
Okay, that's
yep.
great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And if you could be succinct
sure.
and keep it to about 3 minutes would be
I've just got
grateful.
a couple of pages to read basically, so
Sure,
hopefully
thank you.
that should be in the time. Yeah,
Right,
so
thank
Rod
you.
Worthington, I'm a registered surveyor, registered planner, and we've been assisting PR King and Sons with inclinators and their clients with inclinators in the Northern Beaches area for about 30 years now. Look, as in the case with this application, the installations are generally promoted by older residents of Pittwater wanting to remain in their homes. You know, inclinators have been part of the landscape in Pittwater on steep waterfront lots for decades, since about 1950s, and accessing the waterfront is a very high priority and a reason for residing in this area of Sydney. It seems that there's become a bit of a rigid approach in applying clause 7.8 of the LEP, and I think that might cause, from what I understand, there's been one approved out of around between 6 and 10 below foreshore building line in the last 18 months. Talking to council's manager, it could create some, I think it could create some serious social and economic issues for people wanting to remain in their homes and within the area, basically. In this assessment, as contained in council's DA assessment report, there were no submissions received, and there seemed to be an overwhelming support by the internal council referrals in the assessment report regarding all the foreshore departments. So referral comments point to compliance being achieved in all respects with the objectives of clause 7.8 of the LEP, and there are no environmental impacts. This is also set out in our section 4.6 variation request. There are no contraventions of the C4 environmental living zone objectives. There's no environmental sensitivity on the land, and the inclinate is consistent with development in a low density setting without having any impacts. Our submitted C section 4.6 submission and council's own DA assessment internal referrals seem to infer this as well overwhelmingly. So I think the first part of satisfying section 4.63 of the LEP is for the variation is satisfied, that compliance with the standard is unreasonable, unnecessary, as the zone objectives and the objectives of clause 7.8 are not compromised. The second part of section 4.63, based on environmental planning grounds, I mean, that can use the approach in initial action versus Wallara Council, that case. In the absence of any environmental sensitivities or impacts, as set out in the letter that I submitted 2 days ago, we pointed out consistencies with the objectives of section 1.3 of the EP&A Act. The alignment of these objectives are summarised in this letter. This is a very minor building work where foundations and rail below foreshore building line occupy approximately 2.6 square metres of land on the site, being about 0.4 of the total site area. On the basis of no environmental sensitivities or contraventions of the zone objectives or objectives of 7.8, we consider we have shown sufficient environmental planning grounds to show that compliance with the development standard is not reasonable or necessary, as it has been for the last 40 years or so. There's a photo montage on the back of the submitted letter on the 29th. Council's own internal referral bodies, parks, beaches, foreshore in particular, they noted there was no detrimental effects on the waterway or visibility from pit water. Now that goes to items 2 and 3 in the recommendations in Council's planning report. And the first one was recommendation number 1, where they said we hadn't complied with 7.8, and I can't see where we have not. The recommendation 4, the objectives of clause 7.8 will not, in our opinion, won't be contravened. So this conflicts with council's own. The final recommendation seems to conflict with council's own internal referrals in the planning assessment report. So I think as a general note, it's interesting that a swimming pool is listed in clause 7.8, which could have a footprint of approximately 40 square metres of concrete, whereas the 3 foundations we are proposing have an area of approximately 1.08, being 3.6 by 6.6 foundations. The owners of the land want to have efficient access to their waterfront in their elderly years, and they have older parents in the age of 90. If these aren't approved, where there are no environmental impacts, I think that's going to have a and I've written this in my prior statement.
Rodney,
Yeah.
just that you're well over time. I've given you a little bit more than I should, given the the nature of the recommendation. But just asking you to wrap up if there's any other points you want to make, please.
No, that's all right. Thanks. Thank you for your time.
No worries. Thank you. Panel members, any questions or points of clarification?
No, thank you, Chair.
No?
No.
Okay, thank you. And we do have a copy of that late submission you put in, which is, I assume, the one you're referring to is dated the 29th of April.
Yes,
is that correct?
That's right. Yeah,
okay, no,
right.
Thank you. And I note all the points you've made there.
Okay.
So can I thank you, given we have no other speakers on that item. That brings us to the end of the public items. There is another item which is on the agenda for this afternoon, which is DA 2023/1043 Battle Boulevard, Seaforth. However, it is a non-public meeting item, and the panel will be dealing with it in camera and also the determinations I mentioned earlier. So can I thank everyone for attending the meeting, and I'll now close the public meeting. Panel members, can you just stay online for a little bit longer, please? Thank you.